Welcome to Good Follow, presented by DraftKings. I'm Megan Reyes. Joining me is Logan Hackett, and today's guest is former NWSL forward, current soccer analyst, and friend of the show, Darian Jenkins. Darian, it's so great to have you back on Good Follow.
Yeah, it's great to be back. I was hyped when I heard that you guys wanted me back on today to talk the final that we thought was going to be the final, but it's actually the semifinal and all of the things happening in NWSL. It's going to be a good chat.
Well, let's jump right into it. And I'm always excited to learn from you because, as we know, the NWSL semifinals are set and taking place this weekend. So on one side of the bracket, we have Orlando taking on KC Current and Gotham taking on Washington Spirit, winners of both meeting next week at the NWSL Championship in Kansas City. So you kind of mentioned it, Darian, but did we expect anything different than the top four teams making it to the semis? / as you said, we have what we thought was a final happening in the semifinals.
No, not surprised at all. I think maybe could have been 2 months ago. People probably could have predicted that these were going to be the semifinal going into the final. Although I do wish we were seeing Orlando and Kansas City meet in the final. I think it's just going to be great. Getting this much excitement this early on before the NWSL Championship is huge. Kansas City hosting it, I think, is massive. But I like these teams matching up. It's been really fun games throughout the season watching both of these, both the brackets match up against each other. And I will say, on Attacking Third, we made brackets. Mine has yet to be busted. So I'm on the right track. I hope, yeah. If everything goes well this weekend, I'll have made it to the final with nothing going wrong. Knock on wood, famous last words. But I like this. I think, especially even from the coaching perspective, these are really tactical technicians that almost play chess in the way that they play. So we're in for a good weekend of NWSL matches.
Okay, well, let's start with your former team, Orlando. They lost 2 of their final 3 regular season games, but they have looked really unstoppable, especially against Chicago last weekend, winning 4-1. Were those 2 losses the reset that you think the Pride may have needed heading into the playoffs?
I wouldn't even call it a reset. I think that they won the Shield. They clinched a playoff spot, the #1 seed. They nearly went undefeated through the season, which is so hard to do. I think that they rested their players that they needed to. They gave them a little bit of time to sit back. These losses didn't mean anything to Orlando, quite frankly. They have nothing to prove to anybody. And I like that when they did lose, they were like, yeah, who cares? Who else has got the Shield? We do. So I think that they did it at the right time. They let their star players take a little bit of a break. They let other players who are also stars get minutes and look good. And I think it just added to maybe a little bit more of a chip on their shoulder going into playoffs to be like, yeah, that's why we let those 2 games slide. But I don't think it reset them. Maybe it gave them an extra little something to prove going into the playoffs.
I liked on the broadcast how they shared that Seb Hines was like, listen, put the record and everything behind you. Like, we're here now in the moment. Like, we kind of start at 0. I think that says a lot about his coaching and also the players that are on the team. Logan, what stood out to you from Orlando last weekend?
They looked so good. I mean, we were just talking about the break. It did look like they kind of took a break, not so much reset, but they had other players having time. They kind of rested their star players, and they look ready for playoffs. I mean, I don't know if the record really has anything to do with it, but I'm really interested now to see how they play against KC, because you have to think about Chicago. They came in with no momentum whatsoever. 3 losses, I think they were coming off of. I mean, it didn't even look like a mid-season Chicago team. It just kind of looked depleted, especially when you take how strong Orlando was playing. So I guess the big kind of test is going to be this weekend. But based on what we saw last weekend, I think they have it in the bag in a sense.
Well, question for you, Darian. So pre-Olympic break, Barbara Banda had 12 goals in 12 games. And since then, she has been sort of quiet, I guess you could say, depending on how you want to define it, with 1 goal in 10 games. But then last week, she became the only player in Pride history to have a brace in the playoffs with this goal.
Watt, Banda, a stride ahead again. Barbara Banda!
Do you think the Pride hinge their ability to win on Barbara Banda scoring goals? Like, how key is she to their offensive power? And are they sort of like resting on the laurels of Barbara Banda?
I don't necessarily think that they're resting. They have such a stacked team. I think Ali Watt, this is the best I've ever seen Ali play. Marta's with her Vengeance tour being back into playoffs. She was there in 2017 when they lost to Portland, who I also lost to when I was with the Courage. Sadly, they ended up winning the whole thing. I think this team has Adriana, Summer Yates, Ali Watt, Julie Doyle, Angelina. Like there's so many incredible players on this team that if you take Barbara Banda out of it, I think that so many others can still score. But the fact that she is looming, I don't really take her not scoring as, oh, she's not as effective, because how many other players scored in those 10 games? They were still winning. Mm-hmm. And that's because teams have to completely adjust the way that they defend against Orlando when she's on the field. I mean, that takes 2 to 3 players to shut her down. And then you look at how much time and space other players have. I mean, the goal Marta scored last week, she kind of faked out the defender. I mean, Chicago's not the best example just because they've had a rough season. I feel for my Chicago girls, but she does scissor with her right. You know she's going to her left. You know she's going to her left. The frame of the goal is to her left, and you give it to her. I mean, and it's because Banda attracts so many players. So I think she's a huge asset in that way. Do I think she defines the attack for Orlando? No. But it does make teams have to adjust the way that they set up against them. But it's the same battle with Kansas City. I mean, Shawinga muscled the last time she scored against them. She muscled off a couple players from Orlando, went 5v1, and ended up sliding one past Anna Morehouse. I mean, it's a good matchup of let's see how these coaches decide to defend against these two players, and everybody else better step up.
Okay, well, let's talk more about KC, another one of your former teams. As you mentioned, Temwa has been obviously vital for KC this season. And in last week's game, in their win against North Carolina, Vlatko may have possibly left her in a little bit longer than he should have. Let's actually take a look at this video.
Not happy with, because there's the challenge. Shawinga stays down, but immediately look at St. George. It stands over. That's what Kansas City is not happy about. The shove in the end.
So how will the physicality from this last match against North Carolina impact KC, if at all, in this game against Orlando?
I don't think it affects them at all. In fact, I think that is something that team needed. Watching, not that I'm saying there should be violence, but I like in women's sports when there's somebody's just ready to hit, somebody's ready to kind of buck up and be like, back the hell off. Like, we need more of this like villain era in women's sports, because men do it all the time. They're not criticized for it. I mean, men do crazy stuff and they're still allowed to come back and play. Don't even get me started on that. But to just show that, hey, we're here for her, we're rallying around Temwa Shawinga, and that they're not here to play, you're going to stand over our girl. Like, I think it just added a little bit more fire that Kansas City honestly didn't even need going into this match, knowing that Shawinga is a player. We saw Vlatko say it in numerous press conferences, is targeted. She is. There's no way to stop this player unless you try to hit her before she starts running, because as soon as she starts going, it's a goal scoring opportunity. So that's how players are just going to have to deal with it. I do not want that player to get hurt. Absolutely not. But it comes with being an incredible athlete. I mean, we watched Messi get hacked, especially when he was still in Europe, all the time. So it's not a bad comparison to have teams have to try to knock you down before you get going to Lionel Messi.
My biggest fear with this game coming up is 2 games ago, she was out with her knee, just as like a precautionary type thing. But it did look like she was nursing it a bit, or like whenever she went down, it was immediately her knee, which we know also in soccer, like sometimes you just go to that limb. Like she didn't take time out or anything like that. I think she had to come out at the end of the game, but just because of the way she went down, the trainer had to come out. But do you think that that'll have an effect, or do you think that they would have a great recovery week and she'd be able to kind of be normal Temwa this week?
I think they probably had a great recovery week. I mean, you've seen Kansas City and their field and their assets and all of their trainers and all the fancy things they have there now. I'm sure she's fully recovered, rested up. I expect 100% Temwa Shawinga to come show out. I think she lives for games like this as well. There's not a team I've ever seen her play intimidated against, or like she can't handle what's coming to her. Especially when it's do or die as playoffs and the semifinals, and you could get to host at your home stadium if you win this match. I think that she'll be good. And if she's not, we're not going to know. I don't think she's going to show it at all.
Well, let's talk about the other side of the bracket with Spirit and Gotham matching up in a kind of a big surprise. Washington were down 1-0 to Bay FC with 5 minutes left in regulation until this goal. Let's take a look.
The appeal for a handball. It's going to be checked by VAR. McKeown, forward, scores! Lift off at Ernie Field!
Okay, so despite the win, Bay FC frustrated Washington defensively all the way to the end. Should Washington be concerned heading into this weekend's matchup? Logan, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Washington last week against Bay FC and what you think they need to do moving into this weekend?
I always go back to the peak Washington that we saw. And I feel like if we had that peak Washington kind of right before the Olympic break, I believe it was, or maybe just a little bit after, I think that game would have gone a lot different. Granted, Bay did play extremely well and they were fighting, but it is kind of a different team. And I don't think that they've done well to get past the players that they've lost to injury and work together as a team. But I don't think they've done well enough to kind of get back to the caliber that they were at. So I think concern, no, because they're playing with what they're playing with and they have to deal with it. But I think they could be better if it wasn't for injuries.
How much of a loss do you think it is for Spirit to not have Andy Sullivan?
Oh, it's huge. Andy is a player that is kind of the unsung hero every season. She's one of those players that she's not doing the flashiest of stuff, but you watch the way that Andy plays, and I know this from playing with her, she's constantly organizing, constantly setting you up to plug holes defensively. She's always thinking worst case scenario so that she is there to either hit somebody or pick the ball up and regain possession. And I think you're seeing that with the Spirit. It's not that they're worse off or that they don't have good enough players. You're just seeing the organization break down, where I think Andy was the linchpin for it to be so successful. And we're seeing teams break through the middle of the pitch a lot easier, get to go at their back line much easier. And Spirit just have to then respond on the front line. They still have a ton of talent, especially having every rookie on your team score a goal in a single calendar season is not an easy feat. They have a great coach who's come from Barcelona and won everything you possibly could have. But it's going to be a tactical game of shutting down Gotham's attack and then outscoring Gotham.
Well, let's talk about Gotham then. So they are looking, as we know, to be the first NWSL team to go back-to-back. And during last time you were on the show, when we asked you if you thought Gotham could do it, you were unsure that they would be able to go back-to-back. Do you still feel that way at this current day?
I do. I was like, dang, what did I say? Did I say
I love it. Standing on business.
No. Yes. I say so many things. I have no idea. Yeah, I think going up against Gotham plays in such a fun way that's tactically really interesting to watch. They play with a really high back line. Everybody's in front of the half almost. You look at the last time they played Spirit, Trinity Rodman had a couple breakaways over the top. You had Ulai Sar, who sadly is out, but Ashley Hatch is just as fast. Brittany Ratcliffe is just as fast, who can take advantage of the way Gotham plays. But then when they do have the ball, it's such a beautiful, poetic, they move it quickly. They're constantly switching positions. They have these crazy shots on goal. Estera doesn't know how to just score one goal. She scores a brace every time she's on the pitch. They have such a talented team, and no starting lineup is the same. But I think that can also hurt them, not just against the Spirit, but against the potential Kansas City with a Shawinga or Orlando with Barbara Banda.
Well, given their star power and the talent that they have, what will be Gotham's Achilles heel then?
Their high back line, I think. Any team, if I'm looking at a scouting report and I'm one of the players that's thinking, especially as a forward, thinking about going against them, I'm thinking as soon as we win it, send a ball over the top and let's run. Most teams Gotham hasn't has to necessarily respect them so much in the front line that they play against. And I think Spirit with Trinity Rodman, Ashley Hatch, Brittany Ratcliffe is a team that they will have to respect. And maybe, actually, I know Juan Carlos. He's not going to adjust at all, but they're going to have to try to close down those passes that can go long from a Casey Kruger.
Logan, what are your thoughts on Gotham?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, Gotham, I almost in a sense feel like they're hot and cold, and it's hard to conceptualize them now because before, what did they have? Like a CONCACAF Summer League game, I think, or something where they won
Summer
like,
Cup. Yeah.
some crazy score, like 14, either 14-1 or 6-1. I don't know which one that is. But after that, they came back and they started scoring consistently. Like beforehand, it was like 1 or 2 goals a game. And they started putting up like 4. And it was like, whoa, where is this coming from? But they have their goal scoring activated and the best availability that they've had pretty much all season. With that said, it's like, what type of Gotham is coming to play? Because even last week watching their games, after they scored, they get real kind of bouncy, and you'd see that spark in them, and then it would slowly kind of fade away, and Portland would get a run, and then it kind of went back and forth. But if you get the bouncy Gotham that are like hungry for it, I think then they are going to go to the finals. With that said, whatever team comes out of KC and Orlando, I just don't think that they can beat.
So we mentioned that a little bit earlier, how Bay FC, frustrated Washington defensively. How can Gotham do the same? I guess, like on the other side of the ball, we know a little bit of their weakness with their back line, but with their forward line, how can they do the same to make sure that they get their goals against Spirit?
I mean, start one of their stars. I mean, you have Esther, who's brilliant at top. Ella Stevens had a great breakout season. I think Lynn Williams, you have Crystal Dunn, who could potentially play, like Yasmin Ryan. They have so many players that I think individually can cause chaos for Spirit's backline. Now, when you put them all together and they're vibing, how quickly they transition, and you have Rose Lavelle who can dribble past anybody. The way that they can break down Spirit, I think, is relying on those 1v1 players and then their combination play to get in front of goal. Because as soon as they start heating up and they're bouncing the ball around quickly with their front maybe 5 players, I don't know if Spirit can stop them, because we've seen even in their last match leading up to playoffs, they just look like they're in the zone. They feel it right now. And I don't know if Spirit can handle that, especially with how many players they're missing.
Okay, well, before we go into break, we're going to do a quick official pick. So from both you and Logan, who do you have winning between Orlando and KC? I'll go with you first, Darian.
I have Orlando. I'm going to stick loyal to my bracket. My Pride girls are going through.
What about you, Logan?
I've had an intuition since the second I saw this. Casey's going to pull off the upset. I don't know. Tactically, everything on paper, I don't believe it, but I'm going with my gut today.
She's just here for a little bit of chaos. That's okay. I'm not mad at it. I also have Orlando going through, so we will see who is right there. And what about Spirit and Gotham? Logan, who's your pick?
I'm going to go with Gotham.
Okay. What about you, Darian?
I also have Gotham going through. I see them making it to the final, but they don't have the Ali Krieger to fight for this year. I think it's going to be tight.
Okay, so I agree with both of you on Gotham. So we are split decision a little bit, but we have Orlando versus Gotham and KC versus Gotham. And I'm also with Orlando versus Gotham.
Good. I feel like this is the correct answer. Although the Kansas City playing at home for their final would be epic. It really would be.
100%.
Darian's going for the perfect bracket.
Please. I should have bet something on this.
You should have. Well, coming up, we continue talking about NWSL. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Good Follow. Let's continue our NWSL talk and spend a little bit of time on a few of the eliminated teams. Portland Thorns had a real shot after Rylan Turner scored this goal. Let's take a look.
Moultrie, look at the bend, into the goal it goes! Portland has equalized!
So the equalizer came with only 15 minutes left in regulation and would have ultimately sent the game to extra time, where Rose Lavelle called game with this goal.
But here comes Sheehan. Ryan is open if Sheehan can get it there. Across, Lavelle, goal!
So the Thorns have now been eliminated in back-to-back years since winning their championship in 2022. Darian, what do you think they need to do to get back on top?
I mean, they've got a lot to replace in Christine Sinclair. She's been the part of this team. I think since she became part of it in the inaugural season, having somebody to fight for like Christine Sinclair obviously gives you an extra push going into playoffs, which Portland desperately needed alongside Sophia Smith coming back. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Sophia Smith is potentially up for contract or up for negotiating a new contract after this season. They need her there. This is a team that I don't think we saw enough dynamic goal scorers in the front line without her and Morgan Weaver. They also need, I think, another midfielder. They lost a couple of players like a Rocky Rodriguez, somebody that's a little more daring in the midfield. They had very similar profiles in their midfield three that didn't offer enough. And I think this team can get back to where they are. I mean, it's weird to think of NWSL playoffs without the Portland Thorns in them, which we almost had that case. But they really need to acquire some players and have some stability with Rob Gale next year that can just make them the really dangerous team that isn't solely through Sophia Smith.
So obviously you mentioned the loss of Christine Sinclair is greatly impactful to the team and also to this women's game in general. But in addition to filling in those holes in Portland's midfield, who currently do they have that will need to step up for them next year?
I'm going to give a shout to my fellow Bruin, UCLA, Jessie Fleming. She's a player that is so dynamic and be really dangerous in the attack. We've seen her do it for Canada. In college, she did it. For Chelsea, she did it. And I feel at Portland, she sat back so much more. We didn't see her making those daring passes, these daring dribbles, the game-changing moments that we're used to having from Jessie Fleming. She's a player that I think they can build around, that they can corral around, that they can rely on for that stability and to be a leader. But we need to see it on the pitch. I will say, going from Chelsea to the NWSL, it's a huge adjustment. It's a huge adjustment. Every single game feels like it could be a final. Every single game is much more physical and physically taxing, and everybody's faster than you. It's a huge adjustment, and I think she needed this year to have that, and hopefully next year she can really grow into that role that we've seen her have with all of her other teams.
Logan, what are your thoughts on Portland?
I mean, Jessie Fleming is basically kind of like Christine Sinclair because she's Canadian. So it's our little, she's kind of next in line if you think about it, like especially with there's multiple players retiring. But I think when it comes to the NWSL, she has a huge impact, but I feel like I haven't heard her name enough. But going back to somebody whose name I'm hearing more is actually Olivia Moultrie. And I don't know how old she is right now, maybe 18, 19. She came in when she was pretty young, but I feel like she's kind of finally settled into the league, settled into her role. It's no longer, whoa, look at this very young player who had to fight to play in the league playing. She's now making impact. She's in the team and she is up there with the goal scorers. So I'm excited to see how next year, if she's still with the team next year, I think her contract is fine, how she can become a more present goal scorer and kind of be up there with Sophia if Sophia were to stay. But if not, they need a goal scorer, because I was kind of thinking back to their team when they won the championships, and they just had something special, like a little secret sauce to their whole team, and that's just gone now.
Well, Portland wasn't the only team to lose in extra time. In their inaugural season, Bay FC, they made it to the playoffs, but then they came up short to Washington. However, I even hate to bring this up, but their winning goal didn't come from the Spirit. Let's take a look at this.
Donanji says she's got a facial injury. Cross comes in. It's 2-1!
Oh, I feel for Caprice so deeply. And again, I even hate that we're having to talk about it, but if Bay had not scored on themselves, do you think, Darian, that they could have pulled off an upset?
100%. That was the game of the weekend where I think that was the one we all predicted. That could be the only match where there is an upset realistically. Bay fought really hard. We have to give a lot of credit to that team and Albertine Montoya. They overcame so much adversity throughout the year of being an expansion team, doing that well, making it to playoffs, and then it finally coming together during playoffs. The attack and defense, it was kind of one or the other. That was the story for Bay every single game throughout the season until the last few weeks. So I love this. I think it's very promising for the future for Bay and seeing what they can do next year now that Albertine Montoya's more used to the league and what it requires, and maybe bringing in personnel that he can build around, like a Tess Bodie and Rachel Kundunanji and Oshwala and Abby Dahlkemper. But it is tough to go out like that. And another fellow Bruin of mine, Caprice, I feel for her. That's sucks to score an own goal, especially in a moment like that. But She's a vet. She'll get over it. And I think, like I said, it's really promising for Bay's future.
Well, let's talk about it a little bit, because I think they have so much to be proud of again in your inaugural season to make it this far and to be so close to pulling off an upset. I think we talked about it on a prior episode. Personally, I think the absence of Alex Loeda has hurt them a little bit, but what do you expect from them next year? And what do you think, I guess, what can we expect from them, and which players are you really looking out for in their next season?
I'm really looking to see the growth of Rachel Kundinanji. We finally saw her become that X factor forward. It was this close all year to her being it. It was just the final product, the final type of shot decision making, or pass it, do I shoot it? And it was always kind of the opposite was chosen of what she should have done. But she's a young player. We've seen a lot of growth. I'm excited to see her back next year. Same with Tess Bodie. She is unsung hero of Bay. I think every coach I talked to when I was covering matches before coaches' calls was, who's a player that you're looking to shut down? Who can you shut down that'll affect the game? Every coach would say Tess Bodie for Bay. So she's a player I'm looking forward to seeing her game. And I think they need another midfielder, a pure midfielder. Kiki did great, but I think they need a six that can really help distribute play, that's like the Andy Sullivan, that directs everybody and breaks things up and can organize so that it's not so reliant on their backline to have their together, but make sure they have everything together in the back. But it's going to be good for them next year. They're just missing a couple of key pieces to have that consistent season to get them to a final.
Logan, what stood out for you about Bay FC this year?
Rachel Kundinanji, I feel like I expected to hear her name more, but as you said, like, she kind of made perfect progress. And then I'm not too sure what game it was, but there's a clip where she stands on top of the ball, tells the defender to come
against Houston.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I was like, she's here. Like, this is what I've been waiting to see. I'm so excited. So I'm excited to see that type of play carrying on, because it's fun. It's kind of like adding to a Temwa of the league. Like, will she be up there with Temwa and Barbara when it comes to a golden boot race next year? Who knows? I think she could really make a huge impact. But then I kind of go back to think, were they not getting her the ball? Did she like have the full opportunity to make that type of impact? Especially because, like, you see it with KC, they know exactly how to feed the ball to Temwa. With Barbara, Orlando's offense is incredible. She's always getting touches. So I think they could really work on that and kind of develop Rachel into one of those key players.
It is also, to your point, it is fun to see like Barbara and Temwa and Kundinanji and even Oshala, like the style of play that they have brought to NWSL, and it's just made the game really fun.
The African takeover, I love it. The fact that most of the players we were talking about for Golden Boot are players of color, most impact on the league are players of color, players from Africa. I mean, I can't wait to see next year. I was joking with Vlatko Andonovski, like, because Temwa, her sister Tabitha, plays for Lyon. And I'm like, you need to get Tabitha over here. You all will be unstoppable. Imagine.
Right. I know. I agree. Well, we're going to really quick move over to a little bit of other NWSL news. Earlier this week, San Diego Wave signed University of Texas forward Trinity Byers, and she is the first active college player to sign for an NWSL club since the elimination of the NWSL draft. The college soccer season is getting ready to come to an end. Who do you think we could see getting signed next? Darian, do you have thoughts on this?
Ooh, you guys are putting me on the spot. I'm going to stick with a player that's impressed me since she entered college. Sorry, I'm sticking with UCLA. I feel like I've said it 5 times in this podcast, but Lily Reel plays center back for UCLA, Honda Award-winning Mac Herman Trophy finalist. She was a forward, converted to center back, and I think we see elements of her game that's similar to an Emily Sams that would be great for any team in the league. She would have a huge impact.
Logan, how closely have you been following college soccer? I know you've been paying a little bit of attention. Are there any schools or players that are standing out to you?
I'm not gonna lie, originally no, because I completely forgot about the fact that they took away the NWSL draft. Even when I saw they're signing Trinity, I'm like, why are we signing her out of college? Like, that's weird. And then I was like, oh, this is like the drafting process. So I do still have to kind of go back and look at the players. But I am excited to see the class that comes in, especially because I feel like year after year, the rookie classes are just getting more and more talented, and they come in and you're hearing their names more. So I'm excited to see if that's the case next year.
Well, Darian, before we let you go, as you know, the foundation of the show is that communities get built one good follow at a time. And each week we like to highlight a person, page, or brand as our good follow. So who is your good follow of the week?
I'm gonna wreck the Cooligans. One of my coworkers from CBS, Alexis Guerreros and Christian Blanco have a podcast called The Cooligans. Two comedians, hilarious. They drop news, but in the most digestible, great way. Two great human beings, but follow and watch their podcast called The Cooligans. You won't regret it.
Co-sign, but as you said, both just really great people.
I love them.
Well, Darian, thank you so much for joining us on Good Follow. It's always so great to learn from you. It has been amazing to have you on the show again.
Thanks for having me, ladies.
Up next, Logan and I will convince you to hop on the NWSL bandwagon. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Good Follow. Today, Logan and I will be putting your sports loyalty to the test with a game we're calling Bandwagon Fans. So here's how it's going to work. We will be shown a team in the NWSL semifinals, and Logan and I will each sell you on why you should hitch a ride on their bandwagon. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, this should be fun. I'm all about bringing new fans into the league, so we will sell them as best as we can. So let's take a look at the first bandwagon. Okay, we have Orlando Pride. Logan, why should someone become a fan of the Pride?
If you love Brazilian football, which I personally do, it is so much fun and so fast and so precise, then you should definitely hop on board because they just seem to get all the Brazilians. I mean, they have Marta, Adriana, Rafaeli, Angelina, Luana, so incredibly good, and their style fits so well with the team.
It is kind of like really cool how many Brazilians they have. I know that's what they're known for, and especially when they're on an international break, like the whole team is gone.
Yeah, it's like a pipeline.
Mm-hmm. Yes, especially Marta being there, I'm sure has a lot to do with it.
Yeah,
I like your reason. My reason to hitch a ride on the bandwagon is if you're a sucker for a good jersey for football and fashion, this citrus kit, I have it hanging, but it's not showing right now, is one of the best in a while. I think it kind of speaks for itself.
I remember when they debuted it and it was so above all the other jerseys, like just the way it pops and the colors, it is just perfectly made.
And Orlando do a really good job with their PR boxes. I've been fortunate to receive a few. And when I got this citrus kit, they also sent it with like orange marmalade, like actual spread. So it's like, I really love the theme that they were leaning into. Yes.
Oh, they're really going for it. I also love, actually, just to add on, their normal color is purple and there's really nothing but like citrus or like oranges, but it's going like with the Florida theme. So I love how they just like brought something in with them, because Pride, like, I mean, I feel like there's multiple meanings for that, and it's kind of hard to like embody that with your jersey and as a team and everything. So I love the little added touch of the orange citrus.
Yeah, they look good on the field. And for on the field reasons, as we all know, but if you need a reason to support the Pride, 2024 NWSL Shield winners, they had a 27-game winning streak that lasted over a year, like over 365 days without losing. They, of course, have goalkeeper Anna Morehouse anchoring them in the back, who is up for goalkeeper of the year. Legends like Marta, Barbara Band on the field scoring goals, and also they have seemed to really perfected the balance of Coach Seb Heinz's 4-4-2 formation. So these are our reasons to hitch a ride on the Orlando bandwagon.
I love Coach Seb Heinz too. I'm not too sure if Coach of the Year has come up, but if he doesn't win, I'd be very, very surprised.
It's him, Juan Carlos from Gotham, and Vlatko. So, yeah, that's a top Coach of the Year race, but I think Seb has definitely made his case. So let's move on to the next team. Who do we have here? KC Current. Okay, Logan, Why should someone get on the current bandwagon?
First of all, shout out to the graphics people we have because these are very, very cool. But if you want to watch the player that is absolutely running, dominating the NWSL right now, Tama Chwinga, then that's just the only in you need. I mean, she scored against every single team that she's faced, which is just so incredible. And she broke Sam Kerr's scoring record for the season. I don't know what she's at, but she did score their last playoff goal. So it's just so incredible to watch her. And the way that they feed the ball to her, she just goes into open space and dominates.
And it's ugly from there.
Yeah, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just, if the ball is like anywhere near her, then she's probably going to score.
Well, I also have a very similar reason. If you want to become a fan of KC Current, is their attacking presence. They have had, oh my gosh, this is so cute, a record 57 goals scored this season with 18 different goal scorers. So that says a lot about KC's offense when you have a player like Tama Chwinga who is breaking records in her first year in the league. And then you also have 17 different goal scorers on the team as well. And then also my reason, they may have one of the best midfields in the league, which is also led by veteran Lola Bonta. And whenever Lo scores, she has one of the best celebrations. So this is my reason. I'm sure people who are a general sports fan that may not know a lot about the league yet have definitely seen a Lola Bonta goal celly on social media.
Also, I know Vlatko got so much hate with the U.S. Women's National Team, and I mean, I don't think he was fit for it, but the way that he has coached this team has been incredible, and he's kind of had his own little redemption arc this year.
I think that's the thing, is a lot of people were saying is on the international stage, it may not have been his fit, but as a club coach, he has been, he's had a successful track record, and he's continuing to show that in KC. But let's move on. Okay, where are my bandwagon Gotham fans at? Logan, why should someone get aboard the Gotham bandwagon?
It's pretty easy. They were the villains, and they formed a super team. It's like the Avengers. They formed the Avengers team.
Literally in the off season when they were like, oh, we got Crystal Dunn and Rose Lavelle. And even last year we got Esther. And now we have Emily Sonnet. It's like, okay, we get it.
Easy there.
We get it. You want to go back to back. For me, my reason is, okay, they're literally named after Batman. They are named after Gotham City, and they call themselves the Bats. They do their little bat celebration. They call themselves Baddies. I don't think you need any other reason to be a fan of Gotham other than the, I don't want to say the mythical, but the fictional city that is Gotham City. Having your club named after that is iconic.
Lynn has like her hand thing. I can't do it, but like I don't
know how they do it. I don't know, but they call themselves the Bats, and that is
so cute.
Like I said, that is so cute. And also, as we know, Gotham are chasing back-to-back championships. They have a very deep bench. Again, as we've mentioned, they have so many U.S. Women's National Team stars, but beyond that, they have a lot of international stars as well. Juan Carlos is also up for Coach of the Year. I think if you like a championship pedigree team, if you like going for the super teams, then I think Gotham is your club.
Also with like name recognition, even there was a name, I don't fully remember. I want to say it was Jess Carter, but I know it wasn't. But you just kind of associate with like, oh, England, or like AKB, oh, Germany. It's names that you're hearing maybe like during the World Cup or any friendlies or qualifier from other teams. And I think that's really cool because some of them, it's like you only hear them in the States or if you're watching NWSL. So it's just a little, what was the word from a few weeks ago? Amalgamation.
Amalgamation of superstars.
Yes.
Okay, last but not least, let's do our final bandwagon, Washington Spirit. Logan, what is your reason for someone to hitch a ride on the Spirit bandwagon?
If you hitch a ride on this bandwagon, then it will be paying off in the next few years because the rookie class is insane. And you can be one of those people who are like, oh my gosh, I watched her the first time she was in the league. Her very first year, she was doing so well. And now look at her, she's a big star. And those hers, you have 6 options. You have Cora Bethune, who is unfortunately out, Kate Weisner, McKenna Morris, Courtney Brown, Heather Stainbrook, and Hal Hirschfeld, which is just insane. The impact that they've had, especially you hear me talk about McKenna Morris all the time. All of them have had an impact on this team and have led to their depth that has pushed them through the season. And you don't see that very often. They've also all scored, which is, I forget the number. I think 15 of their 54 goals this year they account for. And that's pretty impressive.
Well, I love your reason. And mine, while not a rookie, is one of my favorite players. 2 words to support Washington Spirit: Trinity Rodman, one of the most prolific scorers both in NWSL and also on the international stage. I mean, she was on the list for, correct me if I'm wrong, she's on the list for a Ballon d'Or nominee. Yep. And obviously won an Olympic gold with the US, but she signed a 4-year deal in 2021 for $1.1 million, which at the time was a record-breaking deal. And she's yet to disappoint. She's known as an entertainer. When she puts her opponent on a spin cycle, it is so ugly and it is so disrespectful, but you can't help but just admire it. I love her for her fashion. She is so stylish and she is so, I just love how expressive she is, both as a person and then also as on the field as well. She is not afraid to get scrappy and to get in your face and talk a little smack. I made it very clear early on in Good Follow that I am the president of the Trinity Rodman fan club, and I stand by that to this day.
She just makes it seem like she's been in the league for years. Like she's a veteran. She has a kind of a veteran presence, which is so crazy because the other day I was even Googling her and she's only like 22.
Yes,
and
so
we've
young.
seen her for so long. She's been around and we've just adapted to her. But I completely agree with all your reasons. I love her.
Well, that is it for our game of Bandwagon Fans. Choose your team wisely. No pressure at all. It's just your NWSL fandom at stake. Coming up, I reveal my DraftKings pick of the week and I share my latest Good Follow. We'll be right back. Welcome back into Good Follow. Before we get into our weekly picks, our partners at DraftKings have an offer that's perfect for any game day. Right now, new customers who bet $5 will instantly get $250 in bonus bets. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up using promo code GoodFollow. That's $250 in bonus bets to spend on parlays, live betting, or picking straight up winners after betting just $5. And if sports betting is not yet available in your state, you can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Again, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code GoodFollow for $250 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Okay, now it's time for this week's DraftKings Sportsbook pick. With a trip to the championship on the line, my game of the week is Orlando Pride and Kansas City. We've already discussed how dynamic both teams are, and if both teams are firing on all cylinders, this will be a really good one and probably very high scoring. As we know in soccer, the team that starts on the front foot has the better chance of winning. And while it might be a great storyline for KC to play for the championship in their home stadium, I am picking Orlando to score early with a Barbara Banda goal. And I think Orlando will send KC home. And they're going to get the win. So, Logan, what are your final thoughts on this game?
It's going to be very exciting. I cannot believe, that this is even a matchup that is existing, especially because KC is back to playing how they were playing earlier in the season when they were undefeated. The whole storyline, I mean, Orlando were the ones who broke that undefeated streak. KC wants this so bad. And the fact that they're going to Orlando to potentially hand them a loss to go back home and play for the championships is just so cool. But this could be a final game. I kind of wish it was. With that said, I kind of feel like there could be an upset just because of how much KC wants it. But as you said, if both teams are firing on all cylinders, it's going to be absolutely insane, probably high scoring and probably extremely close down to the very end.
Mad at your pick for an upset. I could see it. That's what's really special about this game is they're, in my opinion, pretty even. I think anything could happen. Well, we are going to move on to a little bit of non-NWSL news. Earlier this week, Caitlin Clark teed off with Nelly Korda at the Annika Pro-Am. Logan, is this a duo that you thought you would see, especially with how much you cover women's golf?
It actually is, which like I feel bad saying that, but the second I saw that Caitlin Clark played golf, I think it was in her senior year, they had it up on the TV. I was like, oh, there's going to be a Nelly collab somewhere. And her and Nelly are actually similar in like an odd way. I feel like personality wise, and they're kind of low, like cracking jokes, but kind of a low key personality sometimes as well. They match each other so well, but to see these two top athletes playing together is insanely cool.
Well, Caitlin had, I think, objectively a pretty terrible first tee off. Let's take a look. The reaction is hilarious. And I am not one to judge because, listen, I'm terrible at golf. But is this proof that Caitlin Clark is human after all? Maybe she's not good at everything.
Absolutely. I actually, it keeps on coming up playing a pro-am or the event right before with the players for the LPGA. And that was my biggest fear going into it. I was like, I literally just need to practice my first tee shot because that is terrifying. So honestly, I do not blame Caitlin at all, especially because obviously she's a much bigger name, but everybody does it. It happens. She already had the other ball ready to put down. She said a little sorry, but I love how the crowd at first is like, oh, is everything okay? And then like they laugh it off.
And listen, it's better than I would have done. Well, in other women's sports news as well, Whoopi Goldberg also announced she's launching the first global women's sports channel called the All Women's Sports Network. She said, everything from soccer, basketball, tennis, cricket, curling, you name it. If a woman is playing it, we're showing it. Logan, is this actually what we've been needing in women's sports? I feel like this is very long overdue.
Absolutely. It's like women's sports on demand. And that has never, ever been a possibility. I mean, even with having the they have their league pass, and then NWSL Plus. To be honest, even finding the NWSL quarterfinal games this past weekend was a little tricky. I mean, it is different because I live in Canada, so the access isn't as good. But there's so many different sports in so many different places, and a lot of times it's not that easily accessible. So now you can just have a platform where you go and want to watch, or you watch whatever you want to watch, and it's right there for you. And I love that. Also, kind of unexpected that somebody like Whoopi Goldberg would do that. Like, I never expected to hear her name.
I know, it was a name where you were kind of like, who? But okay, I mean, I respect it. Yes, well, this is exactly what we've needed. Well, as we close the show, as you all know, the foundation of a good follow is that communities get built one good follow at a time. And each week, one of us highlights a person, page, or brand as our good follow of the week. And I am up this week, and I want to celebrate and shout out the Women's Lacrosse League, aka WLL, on Instagram. Earlier this week, the Premier Lacrosse League announced it's starting a new women's league that is set to begin competition in 2025 with 4 teams and cities that have yet to be announced. The women's league will make its debut at the PLL's 2025 Championship Series in February. Logan, what are first I'll share. I think this is really incredible. Again, as we keep talking about the rise of women's sports and more leagues forming, again, we've seen people like Michelle King invest in women's leagues. We've seen like Flava Flav helping out women's water polo. And so to see more professional women's league pop up is really exciting. I personally actually don't know a lot about lacrosse, so I'm kind of excited to learn along the way. But do you know much about lacrosse?
Yeah, I actually played growing up. I played
What?
like at the provincial level and stuff. And a lot of my friends played for Team Canada and went to school for lacrosse. So actually, when I saw the announcement, the first thing I thought of was kind of the gateway that they have after school, because a lot of them have no clue what to, like my best friend and like literal sister, she played D1 and she has no clue what to do afterwards because there's not a lot of options. I mean, there's Athletes Unlimited, but that's like the top of the top players. And so now to see that there's a league is so exciting, A, but B, I feel like it gives something more to work towards rather than just kind of going through the pathway where you play your career, go to school, and then you're like, oh, well, I have no options now. But lacrosse is so incredibly fun. It's such a fast sport too. Actually, decently easy to play.
Really?
Yeah, but I'm really interested to see how everybody else kind of like perceives it and how well it does. I think it's going to do really well. But I want to see the viewership numbers, and I cannot wait to see them grow year by year because I really feel like they're going to.
Oh my gosh, I did not know you played lacrosse.
Yeah, I played a little bit of everything.
I love that. Well, I'm excited to tune in, and that is my good follow of the week. So everyone go follow at WLL on social media.
And we want to hear from our fans. Who is your good follow? Send your nominations to @GoodFollowShow and tell us why your good follow should be featured on our show.
Good Follow is brought to you by DraftKings. We'll see you next week.